Sound just the grunt. So, I want to introduce our panelists. I'm sorry. I didn't get the clue. That's why I'm no longer on the stage. So we have three panelists who are going to get up here and talk and explain a bunch of things. Paul Kiesler, who is a Gardner resident, yay, who electrified his farmhouse, even older than I am, etc. And we have Melissa Everett, who is, I should say, Dr. Melissa A. Everett, who will be here on the panel as well. And we have Tom Konrad, who is the chair of the Marbletown Environmental Conservation Commission and energy coach.
He's a doctor too.
Dr. Tom Konrad, or Thomas Konrad?
Tom.
Dr. Tom or Thomas?
Tom.
Tom Konrad. Do I have to now, who got which degree, when and where?
She got hers first.
Oh, very gracious. So, please, Paul and Melissa and Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just want to confirm that my house is older than you are, not me. But
I say you. I said no. I said you. I'm not that age. I'm that close.
oh, jeez. So this is so we're holding. This is going to be a little difficult.
Yeah.
Can everyone just hear me, or do I need to use this?
You need the mic.
The mic.
I need the mic. Okay.
It's an older crowd.
It's okay, awesome. So my name is, as was stated, is Paul Kiesler. I'm with the Climate Reality Project, and the Climate Reality Project is an organization that was set up in 2006 by former Vice President and should have been President Al Gore, and he and he set up this organization, and our mission is to educate and motivate people to address the climate crisis. So that's our mission. And so yeah, that's me, and I live in Gardner. And so what I'm going to talk about tonight is how to take advantage of federal, New York, and New York State, and utility incentives to electrify cleanly. And what do I mean by that? That means to electrify your home and your transport, and then make sure that that electricity is green, is renewable solar electricity. And we can all do that now. So that's what's so exciting with the passage of certain acts and the policy status in New York State. We can actually do this now, so and save money. So I would. That's the mission for today. And I just was wondering if anyone. Okay, there we go. Does anyone have any specific interest? Is what I'm going to try to get at right now with this page, because I can tailor the presentation to be a bit more close to what you might be interested in. So there's. Or is there anyone who's interested in replacing some aging equipment in your home? Yes, okay. And would those be furnaces?
Yes.
Yes. Would those be water heaters?
Yes.
Induction or stoves, ovens, and dryers? Clothes dryers? We got one hand in the back. Okay, so I got it covered it all. That's great.
At our table, I heard skylights and windows and just what
Weatherization. Okay. Okay. Super. And okay, yeah. So that helps a lot, and so that means I have to cover everything, which means I need to speed up. Yeah. So oops. How do I go backwards now? So I'm using Father's computer. And so I'm going to blame, no, I won't blame everything on him because that won't end up well. Oh, that would be super. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the goal of the presentation, as I said, is to show all of the federal, state, and utility incentives available for the activities I talked about. So making your home and transport electric and then making them green. And it also will go over some simple guidance on how to plan that out and how to prioritize. And we want to help you take the first step tonight. And so actually I'm here with Tom Poulton, who's the head of the Hudson Valley chapter of Climate Reality, and we'll be back in that corner afterwards. So if anyone has questions on the information, we'll be back after this presentation during the tabling, so we can go into more details. As we only have half an hour now, I'm going to go through a little bit faster.
Sorry, I was going in the wrong direction. Let's try going this way.
So that is the, and then the last thing on that page I want to mention is we will get you can get all of this information, this deck, with all of the links and the resources. We'll have a QR code where you can use your phone to get this deck after the presentation. okay? Or if you don't have that technology, give me your email and I'll send it to you, okay? We can go to the next page. So yeah, this is why I'm here, because I'm really worried about the climate crisis. You know, as we saw last year, you know, the wildfires in Canada really brought this to light, that we're up against time. So we need to act fast, and we need to try to decarbonize our society quicker so that we leave a better place for the next generation than we're aiming for. So this is my sense of urgency, and I hope that, I'm sure we all share this sense of urgency. So if we move to the next, and when we look at New York State, so if you look at the sources of carbon pollution or climate pollution in New York State, the biggest sources are buildings, transport, and electricity. So these three areas are the topics of today's discussion, right? It's homes, but this is all buildings, but it's these three areas are what we're going to talk about. And these are areas that we in our own way can affect with our own decisions around the, you know, around these tables tonight, or around our, you know, dining room tables when we get back to the house. These are decisions we can make. You know, businesses also have to make these decisions. I'm not trying to say that's all our responsibility, but we now have the ability to make these decisions with all of the incentives that are out there right now. Yeah, and so, oops, if you go back just one.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So this is what's happened. So New York has always had some pretty progressive legislation, and I'll highlight it for you in the presentations, where there's a lot of funding, especially for weatherization and for heat pump technology. So I'm going to talk about that. The utilities have been, oops, actually the next page. The utilities are also forced through the PSC to do a lot of activities, so I'll talk about that. But what's new is this IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, that was passed by the President and Congress last year, and it provides, it's probably the biggest climate bill, it is the biggest climate bill ever passed in the United States, and it's the biggest climate bill ever passed in the world. So this is a really monumental, yeah. They deserve a lot of credit. I mean, there's some pros and cons, obviously, but they deserve a lot of credit for getting this done. So, if you can go to the next page. So, and then, so here's the, this graph I want to just highlight was, my sister did this graph. So I'm just giving her credit, her copyright for the graphic. And what you see here in yellow is everything related to your home. And then in blue, it's related to your transport, and in red, it's related to the electricity for those two things. And so starting with the yellow, we typically encourage people to start with weatherization to make sure that your home is as fully efficient as possible before you start implementing space heating or buying solar panels. Because if you do a really good job on the weatherization, you can get smaller heating, and we talked about this earlier, man. You get smaller heating systems, and you can get less solar panels. So it's generally best to start with weatherization. The next point on here is about electrical panel and wiring, and I'm going to talk more about this in another slide, so I won't kill it here. But the point is that you need to have the electricity to do the electrification. And then the next four items are in order of their impact. So the space heating is about half of all energy use in a home. Water heating is about 15%. And then the rest of your home is the other third, right? That's the lights, your computers, your clothes dryer, and your oven, your washing machine, all of that. Typically, only clothes drying and cooking are fossil fuel based, right? So that's why they're the only two that are on here. So these four items, the two types of heating, the clothes drying and cooking, are generally the only fossil fuel things that are in people's homes. You might have a car in your driveway that also uses fossil fuels. So those are the big five. And then that's right, the next point is, you know, the electrical vehicle, and then the last two and the one on top are about solar. And we're gonna, this format, these 11 points, we're gonna carry through the rest of the presentation. So, and there's just two myths I want to, you know, completely get rid of before we get started. The first one is that electrification is about sacrifice. It just isn't. You know, anyone who's been in an electric vehicle knows it's much better. You know, it's faster, it's got more torque, it's like, it's fun. You don't like smell the you know, stink, and they're just better, right? Anyone who's cooked on induction, I've been cooking on induction stove for 5 years. It's better, it boils faster. I can put my hand on it, it doesn't burn. I can clean it up in a heartbeat, and the kids aren't getting asthma, right? So this is just, it's just better. Everything is better. Community solar is better, right? You get 10% off your bills. So this is not about sacrifice. That's the first thing. This is about opportunity, and that's the way I think all of us should be looking at this. And we move to the next myth on the next page. It's also not about, you always hear these things about, oh, it's so expensive to electrify. And yes, it is expensive, right? But you have to think about it in relationship to the alternative, right? So you don't, when you're going out to buy a new car, you can buy an electric car or a fossil fuel car. I mean, so if you count in your budget of how much it costs to electrify just the electric car, yes, that's more expensive, right? Because you're not counting that you would otherwise have to buy a fossil fuel car. And it's the same thing with things like your furnace. You don't replace it until it dies. When it dies, or when it's about to die, but better, then you have a choice to make, either fossil fuel or electric. And in general, with the incentives that we're going to talk about, the electric options are on an equivalent cost or sometimes cheaper. So, and they're definitely cheaper to run, right? So EVs are 40% less expensive to maintain. You don't have to change the oil. You don't have to do all that kind of stuff. And the fuel is 60% less expensive on average. We have, one of the things I want to highlight is with climate reality, we can't put a number up unless we have a footnote with all of the details of where we got these numbers. So these numbers are all they're not just out of the air. These are numbers that we've got backup for. Heat pump water heaters. So the one I put in my house uses 500 kilowatt hours a year of electricity, which with my solar system cost me $35 a year, right? For hot water for the whole year. If you're paying Central Hudson, that's $100. So it's still, still pretty cheap, right? So point being, everything is cheaper. The only exception here, is heat pumps can be, equivalent with natural gas. If you have natural gas that's delivered into your house. So if you have and I don't know if that exists, and I know we don't have it in Gardner. I don't know if in New Paltz.
Yeah.
There's a
gas line that goes down Henry Du Bois.
Okay.
They'll hook you up within 100 feet for free.
Okay, and we're gonna stop that with the New York Heat Act.
Yeah.
Because the rest of us are paying for that, right? Or whoever else has gas is paying for that. So unless you're one of those guys on Henry Du Bois, then you're gonna save money by going to heat pumps because it's cheaper than oil, it's cheaper than propane on a like-for-like basis. And it's cheaper than resistance heating. If it was baseboard resistance heating, it's much cheaper than that as well. So everything is cheaper, but as I said, except if you're replacing a heat pump, air source heat pump versus that delivered natural gas, it could be
sometimes cheaper, sometimes
yes, it could be. It depends on the prices, and there's a calculator that's in the deck that you can use to figure that out. So, okay. Oh, by the way, if you get solar, then it's definitely cheaper, right? Because then it's gonna be 60%, less. Your electricity is less. So this is how we propose going about those 11 steps. First thing we recommend is to get a free energy assessment. There's a program called REAP, Residential Energy Assessment Program. We have a link in the deck. You can click on it and you can set that up, and that'll help you get a list of actions. And we recommend you go ahead and do the low-hanging fruit, like replacing LEDs. If you don't have replaced your LEDs yet, just go ahead and do that stuff. But write down all the recommended actions that they give you, usually around weatherization or some other things. And the next step is to list all your transport and home fossil fuel equipment. So the big 5 we talked about already. And when you think you'll need to replace it, right? Because you're not necessarily you don't have to go out and do all this today, Then the next point is starting with the weatherization of your home. As I said earlier, you're gonna spend less on your HVAC and you're gonna spend less on your solar panels if you do that. And then look to see whether you need an upgrade on your electric panel. That page is coming in a couple of pages. And then the next thing is you prioritize the remaining actions. So you take those, those 5 fossil fuel things and you just plan it out when you're gonna do that over the course of the next 10 years. Because most of these incentives will be good through 2032, okay? Unless we lose the presidency and we lose the House, Senate, in which case they could go away in 2 years, right? So, okay, next page, please. Yep, I'm not gonna drain this page, but this is a page about how that helps you do that planning. It has those 11 items, and it's in the deck, so when you download that, you can get this. Okay, and then on the next page, so this, I'm going to test everyone on this later. If everyone can remember every figure on this page, you win a prize. I think it's one of Miriam's cookies. They were pretty good. But yeah, so on this page, this is the way this works is you go down the left-hand side. It's all the 11 activities that we talked about on the previous page. If you go across the right, the blue columns. Those are columns, yes. The blue columns are the U.S. incentives. The green columns are the state incentives. So we're going to start with the U.S. incentives, and the first two columns are rebates. Okay, and so these rebates are they are not finalized yet. So the Treasury Department issued guidance, and they gave it to the states. The states are going to administer the program. They're now developing the rules of how to develop, to actually do these programs, to fund this money. Actually, the funding is coming from the feds, but how to disperse the money. So what I'm going to talk about here is in general, and the specifics have to be determined once those come out. And I'd love to come back at your welcome spring to talk about those. They'll be. But the important part about those rebates is that they're limited, right? So the New York State gets a chunk of money, and then when it's gone, it's gone. Whereas the tax credits, they're good for the next 10 years. So the more of them, you can just keep using them for the next 10 years. So that's the big difference. So in terms of the rebates, if your income is below 80% of the adjusted median income, then you'll be eligible for the first column. And if it's between 80 and 150, you'll be eligible for the second column. And I think it was Jim who told me that the median income in the county was 93,000 last year, or 96,000?
I think it was 96.
96.
Last year, yeah.
Last year. Thank you. So, that'll give you some idea. Now again, I don't want to please don't hold me to this, because they're going to issue the rules and it'll be specific, but that's general guidance for now. And then the third column is tax credits. So when we look at weatherization as the first item, there's a list of weatherization items that you can get the credits for, whether it's you have your attic insulated, your basement, or windows. And if you're in the first column, you'll get 100%. If you're in a low income, you'll get 100% up to $1,600. Or if you're in the median income, it'll be 50% up to $1,600. And then there's a tax credit, which is 10%. Everyone can get this, no matter your income. It's 10% up to $1,200 per year. So that's per year. So you can do one thing one year, and then the next thing the next year, and the third thing the following year. And keep
Slide says 30.
30% up to $1,200.
Okay, you said it.
Did I say? If I said
something else.
If I said something else, I apologize. I did say. I'm sure I did. So 30% up to $1,200. Right, so I had my basement insulated this year, so I'll be taking that, and I'll wait till next year before I do something else, as an example. And then you can wait for the attic to the third. Actually, the attic should go first. So that's the on weatherization. There's a whole house rebate program, and we don't know any of the details of that. But it'll be up to $8,000, and we do know that it'll be based on the projected savings, energy savings. So, again, I'll come back when we know more, but I don't know the program in detail. And what's really important is that New York State has huge programs on weatherization. So, in addition, and they've been there for a while. So first of all, you get the REAP assessment for free. You get this thing called the Comfort Home, which I took advantage of a few years ago. And that's, if you do your attic and the rim joist, it's $1,000. And if you do X, Y, and Z, it's $4,000. It's not income limited. Anyone can get that. The next one, assisted home performance, is income determined. So you have to meet certain hurdles before you can get that. And then the New York Empower is the biggest of all the programs. It also it's for the least wealthy of all. And it can include not only insulating your home, but also installation of heat pumps. So this is a really, really big, great program. And I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna actually show you in a few pages where you can click and go and see which of those you're eligible for. Okay, so that's coming up. So that's it on weatherization. It's in terms of incentives. I'm going to be here for a while, by the way, on this page, so you might want to have a seat. But on the electrical wiring is the next one. And for the rebates, it's $100 up to 100% covered up to $2,500, or 50% covered up to $2,500. And the same with the electrical panel. You can see the numbers there, I'm not going to read them. So those are coming up. In addition, there's a tax rebate today of 30% up to $600 for certain improvements and uncapped for others. So the way to understand this is the 30% that's uncapped is if you're doing a geothermal heat pump system at the same time, or if you're doing solar panels at the same time as you do this. And then you get uncapped 30% rebate, okay? Otherwise it's $600. And I've read somewhere that the average panel upgrade was $2,000, although I find that kind of hard to believe that it would be that affordable. But so that's it on the electrification. And then, and I'm gonna also talk to you about some hints about how to avoid having to upgrade your panel. That's coming, that's a little teaser. Is anybody interested in that teaser?
Oh,
Tell us more, thank you. Okay, and then the next thing is about the biggest source of energy use in your home is heat pumps. So there's rebates for heat pumps. There's also a 30% credit up to $2,000. And a trick here is you can go and do one heat pump 1 year. So you do, if you have to put in 3 in your home and you have a plan to put in 3, you can do them over 3 years and get the 30% up to $2,000 each year on your tax credit. So they reset every year. But you have to weigh that against the clean heat program. So the clean heat program is, every utility in New York has this program. And basically in Central Hudson, they offer a $1,000 rebate for every 10,000 BTU hours that your system is rated for. So an average home would be like, I don't know, tell me what, 50,000 or so BTU, something like that. So it could be $5,000. Now the contractor will calculate it, and so for my home it was around $5,000. So it's a big chunk of money. It goes down from $1,000 to $500, so half the amount if you're not getting rid of the fossil fuel system in your house. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if you're going to go with that $2,000 per year option, you're obviously not getting rid of your fossil fuel system unless you only have, the one heat pump you're going to put in. So you have to weigh offset those two benefits. If that's complicated, I can go into that more if you're interested. Geothermal heat pumps are super efficient, but they're very expensive. And so there's a lot of benefit. There's a lot of tax benefits to that. You get 30% uncapped off your federal tax bill. So that's, but these things can cost north of $50,000, and they, up to $100,000. So they're expensive. So you get 30% uncapped from the feds. You get 25% from New York State up to $5,000. And that same clean heat program also applies to geothermal, but it's twice as big. So you get 2,000 for every 10,000 BTU hours of rated capacity. So, there's a lot of money. You can get a lot of money off on this, but they're very expensive. And if you ever get it in, your bills will be really super low. That's like glamorous kind of technology, but if you have the funds, you should really look into it because it could be worthwhile. And then the next one is the water heater. So we're going to the second biggest use after the space heating we just talked about. And the water heaters, they get qualified for rebates, but there's also a 30% tax credit up to $2,000. And I think the most relevant thing here is you get a rebate from Central Hudson of $1,000 off a water heater. So in my case, mine cost $1,600 at Lowe's. I got the discount right there, so it was $600. And then I applied online and I applied at the tax time. I got $300 from the federal government tax credit, so it cost me $300. And my electrician and plumber came over that I know, they're friendly, and I paid them $900. So for $1,200, we got a new water heater that's paid off in lower bills like in 2 years. Yeah. So heat pump. If I could advocate for anything, the easiest is the heat pump water heater. It's fun. And I was told once, oh yeah, but the water isn't as good. I'm like, what? And it was by a contractor who only had gas water heaters in his truck. Okay, so there's two other things here. The heat pump clothes dryer and any type of electric stove, there will be rebates for those up to $840 each. And then the other thing we had listed over here is some other things that the utilities provide that you might want to take advantage of. The first one is called time of use rates, where electricity costs less at certain times. If you have something like an electric vehicle, this is great. You just charge it during those times, and your fuel cost goes way, way down. So it becomes like negligible, to be honest. There's also a utility demand response program at Central Hudson. It's not a lot of money, but they'll pay you to turn down your AC in the hottest time of the summer. But it's out there. Some of the utilities have marketplaces where you can buy cheap LEDs. I got 24 for $10. I should have brought them here because I don't really need them. They're for my mom. But and then the next one is there is financing for some of these programs. I don't know anything about that. We just have a link to that. So if you're interested in that, you can go on the link and explore that. And then the last thing is this company called Sealed. It's a private company, so we're not supporting and trying to advertise for them, but they have a partnership with all the utilities in New York, so it's on all their pages, so we feel like we should talk about it. And it's this program where they will insulate and or put in heat pumps for you at their cost, and then they'll charge you monthly for it. So they do all the work and they pay for it, and then they charge you monthly. And the idea is that monthly charge is less than or equal to your utility cost, your reduction of cost from your utility. So you can get them to come and look at it, and if you don't think it makes sense, you can say, oh no, that doesn't make sense. But it's a good option if you don't want to put your own money into this and you want someone else to do this work. It's a good option. Okay, and then I'm not going to go through the transport and the electricity. I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to go through the detailed pages because they're not so detailed. So, yes, thank you very much. So here's some notes. All tax credits are in effect through 2032. There's annual limits for many categories, but they reset each year. So like you can keep getting the 2,000 or the 1,200 for the weatherization. You can keep getting those. So you can split the projects over many years. And there's no limits on total tax credits you can get. So if you make a lot of money, you want to do it all at once, and you can do it. There's no limits. And the big point here is consult a tax advisor before you make any decisions, because we're giving you advice, but we're not your tax advisor. And so that's why we have this very big disclaimer at the bottom. That we're just giving advice, and we're not, you really should check it before you push the button. Either with your tax advisor, or you can just check it online. I checked it online myself. I didn't need to do that. Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm still going, sorry. I'm almost there. So then on the panel, it's a little wonky, but if your panel if you have a normal size house and you have more than 150 amp service, you're gonna be okay. You'll be able to electrify it, most likely. If you're 100 to 150, you should plan carefully. And if you're under 100, you might need additional service. Central Hudson might have to give you additional service. That's a general rule. It's not always the case, but just something to think about. And then some tips on how to reduce using your panel so that you don't have to go and get that extra upgrade is if you get air source heat pumps, they can also come with, you can also get resistance heating backup. Those use a lot of amperage. And that will just, you'll end up having to put extra, it adds a lot of amperage. So you could end up having to do an upgrade of your service. Your water heater, they're now coming out with 120 volt water heaters as opposed to 240, so that will help reduce your usage. You could also use a 15 amp breaker, which is lower than normal, so that can help. Clothes dryers, my clothes dryer, I have a heat pump clothes dryer, it uses 120. I just plug it into a socket in the wall, so we did no wiring. That's why I got it, because it actually was cheaper that way. By the way, the other advantage of heat pump water clothes dryers is you don't have to vent, because it just takes the water out of the clothes and goes down the drain. So they cost more, a little bit more, but the actual installing them is a lot cheaper. And so it was actually the cheapest option for me. That's why I got it. The stove, you can use a 40 amp versus other options breaker. And there's new ones that are coming out that are very expensive for now, but in the future, if you have time to wait, they're coming out with 120 volt ones that use batteries so that you would only need you could just plug it in again to a wall unit. EV chargers, like most people drive 20, 30, 40 miles a day. So overnight, you can usually just plug it into a wall socket and get your EV charged back up. That's what I did for a long time. And then I put in a 240 volt charger, which costs $500 to put in. And you can put in different amperage, so you definitely don't need to put in really high amperage on that because, unless you're driving 280 miles a day and you need to come home every day and recharge that whole thing. But usually you're charging 50 to 100. Mine, which is 16 amp, I get recharged in 8 hours from 20 to 80. So it's not EV charging is great actually because now I don't stop at the gas station anymore, which is super. And then they have these power sharing devices where you can have it so that one will work and the other won't. Like the oven will work or your car charger or something like that. So that's another option you can use to avoid getting another service. Another thing you can do is just add another panel, which I've done twice now. So that helps a little bit. He's got 4, okay. So that's it about this, and I'm gonna go through a bunch of pages now. I can see that there. So this is actually, these next pages I'm not gonna present, the ones with the white stars. They're in the backup and they have all the details that we talked about earlier. So we're gonna just go through that. This is that residential energy assessment. And these are the 2 links that you'll be able to push to see which programs you're eligible for in terms of New York State weatherization. And I'm going to just keep going through these. Oops. Heat pumps. Does everyone know about heat pumps, or do we need to talk about heat pumps? Talk about heat pumps, okay. Heat pumps move heat. They don't create heat. That's the main thing about a heat pump. That's why they're a pump. So one of the things that's great about them is they can move heat into your house in the winter, or they can move heat out of your house in the summer. So they act as both a furnace and an air conditioner. So that's, when you're comparing like the cost of a heat pump, you need to compare it to the cost of your furnace and the HVAC or AC, right? That's one thing. Because they move heat, they don't create heat. They require much less energy, and so they're much more efficient. So, for instance, fossil fuel furnaces will generally, like the best ones, will have like a efficiency rating in the 90% or so. Electric resistance heating is 100% efficient, and of converting energy into heat. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about these efficiency ratings. The heat pumps vary, but they can be from 300 to 400% efficient because they're just moving heat. So that's why they're kind of magical. Now, the difficulty with these air source heat pumps is, until recently, their coefficient of P, productivity, the COP, the COP, this coefficient of efficiency would be like 300 or 400% when like you're heating to 72 and outside it's 60 or 47 is the temperature that they use. So when it's 47, okay, yeah, great. So it's 400% efficient. You think that's great, right? And then when it goes, they also now measure at 17 and 5. And what you need to make sure is when you buy a heat pump, you look up on, is it here? It's it's one of the links. You have to look up on this site called NEEP, and that'll tell you the coefficient, the COP at 47, 17, and 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And modern ones, which are good, should not deteriorate in their performance. they should be very, very small decline. So it should be like 400, it should be very close, right? Or I think it's measured like 4 point something, then 3.8 or whatever. So that's what you should be looking for to make sure that they're very, and they're rated so that they work down to -13 Fahrenheit. I checked, and it hasn't been -13 Fahrenheit in Ulster County in over a century. So, this is not, they basically work, there's tons of people like myself and Tom and a lot of other people who, that's all we have, that's all I have at home. So they work is in the heat. Now again, are they cheaper or more expensive? So they are cheaper to operate than if you have oil or propane. I can almost guarantee it. Again, you can look at that site I had referenced in the earlier page to do the calculation, but they're almost guaranteed to be cheaper to run. And the only option is if you live on Du Bois and you have this natural gas that's delivered to you, then yes, that could be. You have to check it out. You have to use a calculator. Is that 30 minutes?
No, that's
Okay, I have 30 minutes, I might be way over that, what am I on? I don't know. So yeah, so that's heat pumps. And we can answer more questions at the end. I want to try to just get through this so I get in my half hour. Yeah, can we go to yeah. And then the next one, so these are all the, these ones with stars, we're just gonna go through, just flip through because you can use them later. Yeah, and these are those programs I talked about, the demand response and the utility marketplaces. And this is that program called Sealed with the links. This page we should stop on is like the contractors. So NYCP has a site where you can find clean heat program contractors to make sure that you're getting a good contractor. I just today looked, in Ulster County there's 107. So, and I don't think there's 107 good contractors in Ulster County that that do this work. So I have to tell you that you really need to make sure you get the right contractors. And I go on Facebook and ask people who is good. You can always ask Tom. He can. I don't know if he can recommend. I can't recommend people. Oh, he can. I can't. So that's good. So get a meeting with Tom on his Calendly. And so but make sure you get a good contractor and get 3 quotes, especially on the heat pumps, because you'll be getting great mechanical engineering advice. They're going to tell you, one guy's going to tell you, oh, you need 5. The other guy's going to tell you need 4 ductless, let's say. And the other guy's going to say you need 3, and it's all should be ducted or whatever. And then you'll get these different options. You can choose, and that way, if you get 3, you'll be able to compare them on a lot of different levels, but especially on the mechanical engineering solution that they give to you. And again, that's this link down here. The second and bottom line is that link to that site where you can look at you put in the number of the unit that they're going to install, and then you can see how efficient it is. And that's really important to do because you want to make sure you're getting really, efficient equipment because you're making a big investment. Okay. Yeah, so then we have 2 more topics left. It's like 5 or 6 pages, and I'm going to go through them real quick. Transport. Best thing to do with transport is to walk. The next best thing is take a bike. And then the third best is take the bus. Fourth best is to get your e-bike out and try not to run me over on the rail trail if you could. And then the last option is to have a car. But of course, out here, you probably need a car, right? But if you can avoid it, please do. And EVs, as everyone now will tell you, are just better than gas cars. There's a few things that people really worry about. The biggest one is what's called range anxiety, because you're driving somewhere, 3 times a year you go on vacation, and you don't have enough range, so you have to plan it out. And you have to maybe wait for 40 minutes at the EV station to charge it back up. But if you plan that along with your lunch or your dinner, it's not a big deal. And you kind of get used to this. And but you're only looking at that bad thing. I want to talk about the bad things you're avoiding. You don't stop every 2 weeks to fill up your tank. And the bills at the end of the month will be, a lot less for EVs. You don't go in for maintenance all the time. You're not like, how frustrating is that? I got to drive down to Newburgh, leave the car, stay there all day or come back. You don't have that crap with EVs. It's just, you save so much time, but all people really worry about is that 40 minutes when they're going on vacation, maybe 2 times on their vacation. So everything new, you focus on what's different, and that's natural, that's human nature. But I've been riding an EV since 2015, and I just would never go back. You couldn't pay me to get into a gas car again. Okay, so that was my soapbox. I'm getting back off it. So, so on EVs, you get big incentives. There's $7,500 tax credit. And the great news on this is that from next year, that's going to be a rebate. So if you go in, if you don't have $7,500 of taxes to pay, you can get that now as a rebate from January of next year. So it's going to be a little bit bumpy probably in January because all the dealerships have to apply for this with the federal government. But basically what will happen is you'll testify that you earn less than $300,000 for a household or $150,000 for an individual, and they will give you the $7,500 right off the car there, and the government will pay them within 72 hours. So that's the new setup. It's great. That's already how the New York rebate works, which is on the next page. But yeah, so that's great. Just one warning though, if you do get that rebate right there at the dealership, and in the previous year and the current year, when you file your taxes, you make more than that, you're gonna have to pay the IRS that money back. So that's just the thing there. There's a list of cars that qualify. Some cars qualify for the full $7,500, other cars don't. And there's a way to avoid all of this is you lease the car, and then the dealership can get the $7,500 and they'll include it in the lease payment. And if you look at leases actually right now, leases on EVs and leases on gas cars are about the same. So this whole myth that they're more expensive, it's changing pretty fast. There's a tax credit on used cars up to $4,000, 30% up to $4,000, and the income limits are half of the previous income limits. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so New York gives $2,000, oh well, either $500 or $2,000, depending on the car. And you can see the eligible models and the rebate levels using that link. And so I just put in here that, the reason why everyone thinks EVs are so expensive is because everyone started with the most luxury item. All the car manufacturers started with luxury cars because that's where they can make the most money. And but there are cheap options. And so like the EV, the Chevy Bolt, which is a great car. I know a lot of people who drive these and who love them. And they were discontinued, but they're now back. So they cost 28. It's hard to get the base price 27, but let's say it's like a little bit under 30,000. And your end cost will be under $20,000. And there's not very many cars that you can get right now under 20,000 new cars. I think there's only 4 in the country right now. So, just keep that in mind. And then if Central Hudson has a time of use rate, you can click on that and, apply for, not apply, just say you want to do that. And you can get reduced costs at certain times of the day and higher costs at other times. Be careful. I've fallen afoul of that. The first month of my time of use rating was, I doubled my bill. So you have to be very careful to know when it starts. EVs get 10% off Easy Pass. There you go. And I think that's it on electric vehicles. And the last point I wanted to talk about was solar. Solar is on the next page. It's a little wonky, isn't it? Yeah, residential solar gets a lot of tax credits in New York, a lot of benefits. So the federal government gives you 30% tax credit, uncapped. New York State has a 25% tax credit, which is capped at $5,000. And there's a NYCP New York Sun on invoice discount, which is about 25 cents per watt, which on like a 10,000 watt system, kilowatt, like a typical system would be about $2,500 additional. So like on a typical 25 panel system would be like $2,500, $3,000. So you can end up getting like it'll end up costing you like 45% of the gross cost, usually. And you can use most of those tax credits you can use in future years. So if you don't have enough income tax to offset it, you can keep using them, I think up to 5 years. Again, I'm not an accountant, but what we like to recommend is to use Energy Sage. You can get in there, you can get like quotes on that site, And they actually have people who call you and talk to you about the different quotes and talk you through the differences. I used them when I did it. I ended up not really using that advisory piece so much, but they got me 3 good quotes. I chose one of those. And the average payback in the US is under 9 years. So you put in, $100, you get it back in 9 years, and then after that, it's all free electricity. So in New York State, it's actually less than that because the incentives are so much better here. So like, I've just helped a friend with a quote. He got about a 6-year payback. I did mine 2 years ago. I have a 7-year payback. My electricity costs the equivalent of 7 cents per kilowatt hour if I calculated over the 25 years life of the. So you can save basically 65-70% of your electricity costs with solar. It's just if you can do it, you should really do it. And if you can't afford to do it, there's banks that will loan the money for you to do it, and hopefully that loan will be less than your utility bill. It should be, and you pay it off in 10 years, and then you got free electricity for the rest of the time. So solar is the biggest. If you're not doing it, you got to do it. It's just so. And if you don't have the next page shows you what to do if you don't have your own home, or your roof is like clouded or whatever. You can get community solar, and community solar is great because all you do is you sign up, and then you'll get 5 to 10% discount on your utility bill. And here it takes probably it can take a while because there's a big line to get this. So it took me like 8 months to get included in the program that I applied for. And we're going to be at the back, Tom and I, and we're going to have a little QR code so you can just push on it, and then you'll be able to actually apply it right here if you want to for that. Yeah, and it's for solar. So the way it works is they'll build an actual solar farm. So you're actually getting real solar. This is not like fake. You're getting real solar. So they'll build a farm and they'll allocate to you some portion of that, and they'll credit the actual accounting is a little bit different depending on the company, but in essence, you'll basically just get credits for your solar production, and you'll pay them back that amount minus 10%. So it's a really good option, but residential solar is much better. You save a lot of money, and you're making the grid much more reliant by having residential solar. It's reducing the amount of transmission that we need to build and all kinds of good things like that. So I think that's it, but maybe I'm wrong. Oh, for renters, yeah, so renters, do we have renters here? Anyone renting? I was for a huge time, great. So yeah, if you're a renter, one of the things you can do is you can talk to your landlord and have her do all these things, right? Because they'll save money. You can take this presentation to them and tell her, look what you can do, right? You can save a lot of money. Alternatively, if sometimes they'll let you do the changes and take it off your rent. That's an option as well. But if you can't do those things, some things you can do is you can get these portable induction stoves, tops. They're pretty cheap. So you can get those. They cost less than $100 and I used, in my house up here, I used that for a year and a half. And they work great. They're a little noisy compared to a normal induction stove, but they work great. And so that way you don't have all those noxious fumes coming out of your gas stove. I don't know if you guys have been reading the health studies about, it's like having a car in your house. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So yeah, so that's a great option. Another one is you can put in heat pump window units, which are pretty expensive right now, but they're coming down. Or you can use an inverter air conditioner, which is a lot more efficient. Those are things to look at. You can still do, like, if you're paying the electricity bill, you can still do community solar. If you have a car, you can still make it an EV, right? But in terms of the home piece, you're gonna be a little bit limited on the space heating and the water heating. And so you're gonna have to talk to the landlord and hope for the best. Okay, and we can skip this next page, which I present in New York. And this page is the conclusion. So this is the QR code that when you put it up, your phone up to it, you'll get the presentation. Actually, it's a little bit different. It's longer. It's not shorter. It's just longer. It's got more pages. So you'll get that. And I just want to conclude saying that buying electric appliances generally now with all these incentives will cost you less than the fossil fuel alternatives, and they're less costly to run. They're better, they're cleaner, they're safer, they're comfortier. Everything, you know, like the house gets comfortier, if that's a word. Like the amount of drafts I had is much better now. So anyway, and then renewable energy, just sourcing renewable. Like everyone should be on solar. If you can't get residential solar, do community solar, but get on it because you save money. Just like why not get this? It's free. So it would be great if everyone could commit to one thing today. And two options which are totally free is getting a home energy assessment from the REAP program, and another one is community solar. And we're going to help people with that in the back afterwards. And I think actually there's one more page that I wanted to show everyone. This is the resources, and then the next page, this one. If you want to join the Climate Reality Project, they have a really vibrant community up here in the Hudson Valley. Tom's, like I said, Tom's one of the co-chairs. You can join the chapter by zapping that QR code with a dinosaur. It's we'll have in the back too. And there's April training in New York City. Al Gore will be coming, and we'll have a huge lineup of people presenting. He usually gets like, you know, governors and really like important people in the climate movement. Bill McKibben comes a lot, and Michael Mann, all these names. These guys will be showing up. That training is absolutely free. It's for 2 days, April 13th and 14th. You click on there and you can sign up for that. It's actually not the registration form, but they'll put you on a list so that they'll tell you when the registration form is ready. So I really encourage everyone to do that because it's changed a lot of people's lives. All right, and I think that's it. I want to thank you for your patience. That was a lot of information. Yes, thank you. And now I would like. Tom's next. Okay, now I would like to introduce someone who actually helped me on my journey and gave me some great advice. So his name is Tom Konrad. He's with New Yorkers for Clean Power, and over to you, Tom.
So hopefully you'll have another 2 hours for my presentation. Actually, mine's really short. So I am an energy coach for New Yorkers for Clean Power. You can go over there.
Nothing, the QR code I didn't get.
Here it is. I'm going to bring it over to you. Yeah, just leave that up. I don't have anything on the
Oh,
screen.
no, I'm putting up the slide.
Oh, you're putting yours up. So we can go over there with Melissa, and she can sign you up for a coaching session. We do a 45-minute free coaching session, either by Zoom or on the phone. You can sign up yourself. It just goes automatically into my calendar. And if you got excited by what Paul said, but couldn't follow everything, we walk you through it and help you make your own plan. And it's individualized to your house and to your needs. And I do even touch things that aren't on there if that's what you need. If you want to know the best electric lawnmower, I can help you with that too. I get excited about all these things. And yeah, because I've basically been doing this since, well, I started with myself. What is it? Gosh, it's almost 20 years ago now. But when I started trying to do it, I fully got fossil free, what was it, maybe 4 years ago? Depends on how fully, the last 3% workshop. But I've been helping people a lot, and so I know answers to most of the questions. I really like trying to be stumped. It's fun. So, there you go. And I'll keep gabbing till Melissa's ready.
Okay.
Why don't I just take a random question? Someone try to stump me.
Yeah, really, no, Tom is really smart.
Anna? Did you have a question?
Actually, it might be for either one of you, but the idea of that heat pumps don't create heat, just move heat. I question that in that if you're taking cold air and somehow bringing BTUs into the house, you are making heat, and I just would like clarification of that.
Well, a heat pump is an air conditioner. So if you think about your old air conditioner, it heats the outside. If you stand out by the condenser out there, it's heating the outside. It operates in reverse. There is some of the heat that is made by using the electricity, So there is some created, so maybe a third of the heat that's coming into the house is from burning that electricity, from using it. But some of it is just because they're making cold outside and making heat inside, so it's moving the heat. If you stand outside your heat pump, next to the blowing air on your heat pump, it's colder than the air before. All air has heat in it. Unless we are at absolute zero, minus 272 Kelvin, there is heat there, it just doesn't feel warm to us. But unless your air is turning solid, there is heat. That's the difference between here and Pluto.
So I'm just trying to understand your service. So let's say I have a house, I want to go fossil fuel free, so I can consult with you and you'll sort of step me through
Yeah,
what
I
he was
help you
talking
make
about?
a plan.
Okay.
So if you or I just answer a short question. But often the people who come will say, hey, I want solar, what do I need to know? And I end up telling them that, and then I also sell them a heat pump. Or you just don't know where to start. You want to do it, you don't know where to start. I'll walk you. Whole process was good, but it's a lot. And so it's good to have someone to walk you through it. Okay. And we're going to pass up to Melissa, and
Yeah, okay.
Afterwards I will be answering.
Right, okay. And so, the power of story. I have one slide, and you might want to turn off the lights. You can really take this in. Embracing the future. All right, so this is the late Gladys B. Everett, and this picture, age 94, sitting in front of what was her little house, which is now my little house, with her ear of corn in her house coat, watching them install her solar panels. And this, to me, is just, it's my model for leaning into what you don't necessarily know, but you want to welcome. And so I'm just going to tell you in under 5 minutes the story of how we blundered into this little house, which I now own and live in, where my year-long electric bill is maybe $700 or $800. My solar is another $300 or $400, and I'm spitballing. I have air source heat pumps. I still have my furnace because this was 2014. It was 1 year before cold climate heat pumps really came into their own. But I'm just going to tell you a few things about all the ways that we blundered into this, and 4 or 5 things not to do. But also, if you just do a few things right, you really can pull it off. I'm an interdisciplinary social science PhD, and those of you who know me know that I am really like, you get technical and I'm under the bed. But we looked at the options for solar, and we went with something called a power purchase agreement, which is, Elon Musk now owns my solar panels. And he's a wonderful company called Solar City, which had not yet been bought by Tesla, but I was able to lock in a per kilowatt rate that's way lower than what anybody else is paying, and on a 20-year contract, and I didn't know who was going to buy it. And they told me how much I should have, and I said, that doesn't seem right, and because we were just installing the heat pumps. And so we started running the heat pumps. The solar was totally inadequate. I'm like, what's going on? And the solar people said, sorry, you've signed the contract. I learned that in the town where I live, which is actually not in New York, the zoning rules said you could only have a solar panel that is a perfect square or rectangle. And so the stupid thing wasn't sized properly to begin with. So lesson number 1, know your context. Two, we got the solar panels and the heat pumps around the same time, not for any rational reason, but family dynamics of what we could get to agreement on. And the solar people and the heat pump people did not talk to each other. And the solar people said, okay, we'll add in 10% for the heat pumps. Note to self. So if you are working with multiple contractors in anything like the same window of time, make darn sure they are talking to each other. But we had upfront gotten an energy audit. It was one of those energy audits from the electric company where they come in and they check the boxes and they go. We got a second energy audit when nothing was working right, and they did a blower door test and some of the other more rigorous things that you've heard about. That helped some. That got me to improve my attic insulation and basement and some air sealing, and that got it working better. But only when I got energy audit number 3 did we actually get to the bottom of why my heat pumps just weren't pushing out heat and the whole thing just didn't seem like it was tuned up properly and my bills were still high. And I will shout out to Judith Karpova, you may know her, who is a freelance energy assessment person who came to my house with her infrared camera and took a picture all around my house and determined that my north-facing wall was R0. And 2 consecutive energy assessment teams had not picked that up. So, you know, really, what I want to say with all this information flowing around is take a little time to understand your building. Don't worry about digesting all the detail that's here, but think about what are the quirks in your building. Another story, I'm so ashamed of this, but when we had just gotten the heat pumps in, I came home one night and it was raining in my house because a pipe had burst, because I had not figured out how and when I needed to adjust the thermostat when it was -5, and no, it doesn't get to -13, but this was -5. And the reason was there's one little, what's called unconditioned space, one little bathroom that a pipe went through that wasn't insulated. And nobody in the system of people advising us had thought about that really, or thought to remind us of that. So really, if you get to know your house, get basically familiar with the equipment and the alternatives, ask some hard questions of each contractor, bring them together, talk with one or more of the experts here, and just qualitatively get confident in what you're hearing. You will prevail, and all of these things I am telling you were more than 5 years ago, and for the last bunch of years, I have been saving like crazy and having a trouble-free, close to 100% renewable energy powered home and feeling really great about it. So that's what I got.
So let us all please give a hand to Paul and to Tom and to Melissa. They'll be right here waiting for you. Bring them a brownie, bring them some cider, come ask your questions. There's